Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got here on the 14th day of June, a winter storm warning for the northeastern Brooks Range. That's out tonight until 4 a.m. Friday morning. And looking for heavy snow going on now today, such as at Anaktuvuk Pass. That's going to continue. Look for 3 to 8 inches of snow total by the time the warning's due to end at, again, 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Otherwise, fire danger looks pretty high here over the north central interior from around the Selawik Valley, across the Kobuk Valley, right on up across the northern portions of the upper Yukon there to the southern part of the Brooks Range. There were some showers, thunderstorms occurring today there, so probably improving a little bit. May lose the extreme area there, but when I last checked, they still had extreme tag there for the fuel moisture up over the northern upper Yukon Valley there. And around Tanana, just east of Tanana there, central interior, areas of extreme fire danger, as well as over toward the in and around the Kobuk Valley area. To the south, high fire danger, Susitna Valley, western Kenai Peninsula area, and also out here to the southwest over the just near the Yukon River there in the Delta, lower Yukon River Valley area, a couple areas of high fire danger. Otherwise, none here down to the southwest part of the state or Copper River Basin, and the upper Tanana Valley had pretty low fire danger as well as, of course, the Panhandle. And looking at satellite imagery today, we've got low pressure here rotating, looks like right near the Arctic coast there, central Arctic coast, the center of which, both the surface and aloft, especially aloft. And we've got snow going today, again, heavy snow here across the Brooks Range, northeastern Brooks Range, and on out to the Arctic coast, picking up some moisture as well. Lighter amounts back to the west. A few showers in through here with this band of moisture, but only a few hundredths of an inch at the most fell today in areas that saw any moisture. Thunderstorms developing here north of the White Mountains, roughly between, actually well north of the White Mountains, between Fort Yukon and Arctic Village. Had some lightning strikes detected earlier this afternoon. It may expand some later today southward here before the day is over toward the Alaska Range possibly. And showers hanging on to the northern Panhandle, brought anywhere from 2 to 3/10 of an inch in areas there, such as Haines on up towards Skagway, seeing about that amount of precipitation there. Really shutting off down toward Juneau, just 1/100th of an inch or so falling during the day today. And just some isolated showers down over the southern southeast coast. Stewart and Heidelberg had one earlier on, but starting to improve down there. No storminess over the Gulf of Alaska. And then you can see this cloud shield here. That's the next system that's bearing down on the Alaska Peninsula eastern Aleutians this afternoon. Rain just making landfall during the afternoon here. Actually a little to the south most of the day, but winds, rain coming up, increasing there for the Fox Islands, eventually the Alaska Peninsula, cirrus just reaching the southern Kodiak Island area today. Otherwise a lot of sunshine through the south central Alaska area down toward Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay into the southwest part of the state. And then the showers here starting to pop up over the Alaska Range. And again, this evening, one of those could develop into an isolated thunderstorm or two into the eastern Alaska Range. Showers over the northern Panhandle, really widely scattered showers down to the south. Generally cloudy there across the Panhandle, especially off the coast, a lot of low clouds, drizzle, fog type of conditions. Same thing going on out here over the Bering Sea. You can see clear, though, right along and off the coast, Nunivak Island down in toward Togiak and Bristol Bay. But lots of clouds, lower clouds out here over the Bering Sea, high pressure there, and then the higher stuff here from Adak eastward associated with that next storm, which tonight will push northward. So wind and possible gale force winds with this front for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. They'll be slipping on up into Kodiak Island as well later on, late this evening into, or after midnight definitely, toward morning. Wind and rain coming up there. Otherwise, the interior looking pretty good here. Just a weak trough here will kick off a few isolated showers over the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. Koyukuk, upper Yukon Valley dry. dry, mostly clear weather here for the Seward Peninsula. And again, along and off the coast, that northeast flow kind of increasing there. Get some mid and high level clouds here coming in toward Kuskokwim Bay. And then still mostly clear, Kenai Peninsula, south central Alaska, Copper River Basin through the night tonight. Isolated showers, mostly cloudy, scattered showers here for the southeast coast, about sums it up. Widely scattered, probably more mist than hit down there, but you see quite a bit of cloudiness here, especially along the coast. Could be some drizzle, fog with that, lower flying conditions. Then for tomorrow, you'll see the snow up here after the winter storm warnings ends at 4 a.m. Really starts tapering off tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon, just down to snow showers now for the day tomorrow, even lesser amounts out over the eastern Arctic coast. Places like Umiat that picked up upwards of a quarter of an inch of liquid water, or about a tenth of an inch, I'm sorry, for Umiat Airfield picked up a tenth of an inch. They had about 1 inch of snow fall there. Otherwise, lighter amounts out toward the Arctic coast. Well, actually, both Umiat Airfield and AKwx, they picked about 1 to 2/10 of an inch water equivalent today, and lighter amounts back to the west. Now be even less of a factor tomorrow up there with improving conditions. Otherwise, it looks like rain is going to slide right on up into south central Alaska. Good south to north flow here, pulling a lot of moisture northward. You can see the front pushes right in across the Barren Islands in towards southern Cook Inlet tomorrow, back along the Kuskokwim Delta area there, with rain probably by afternoon into northern Cook Inlet, spreading into the southern Susitna Valley. Earlier in the day, though, definitely for Prince William Sound, western Prince William Sound, could be moderate to possibly locally heavy here on the southern Kenai Peninsula by tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, southeast coast here, ridging right along the coastline there, keeping it will be a dry day, shower-free. And some areas will see a fair amount of sunshine, especially over the eastern areas there. Out toward the coast, a lot of low clouds will keep it socked in there probably through much of the afternoon. May get some partial clearing late. Back out to the west, nothing behind this storm, just some northerly winds maybe gusting 35 miles an hour around Adak and Atka, much lighter out toward Chimney and Attu, with low clouds and fog here from the St. Lawrence Island area, Bering Strait, all the way down into the western Aleutians. And the outlook for Saturday, first day of the weekend, really improves there for the eastern Arctic coast. Just a few lingering rain or snow showers. That means temperatures on the upward trend as well, with some sunshine here from the northwest coast and the Seward Peninsula. Kind of a narrow area here now across the upper Yukon, with this front driving northward with that southerly flow, but really weakening. The Alaska Range taking a lot of the punch out as far as precipitation goes, really breaking it up right through here. But a band of rain will exist from the Koyukuk Valley and expand and become a little heavier as you head southwest along that frontal boundary out toward the southwest coast. So it looks wet and, well, cloudy and wet for the Pribilof Islands. And it'll be wet and breezy here for the Alaska Peninsula up to Kodiak Island, that southerly flow, keeping the moisture socked in, especially on the southern side. See the heaviest amounts. Could see another quarter of an inch there. Rain up the western Cook Inlet area, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. And as that front pushes inland, I'll bring rain into the northern panhandle, but the southern areas should stay partly to mostly sunny, definitely dry. Best chance of sunshine will be down that way, with wet conditions back to the north. And taking a look at the forecast lows down there for tonight, not too bad about like we've been seeing. Upper 40s for the most part, lower 50s farther to the north. North Gulf Coast, mid 40s, upper 40s Kodiak Island into Bristol Bay, with temperatures running 45 to 50 for the Susitna Valley, as well as areas down into the northern Cook Inlet area, Anchorage, and the Kenai Peninsula. Upper 30s here through the central interior, lower 40s over toward the eastern border there. 41 forecast low for Yukon. Arctic Village dropping down to 35. 24 the low, a little bit lower than what you currently got there for Anatuvik Pass. And temperatures generally below freezing up across all the Arctic coast and North Slope, with mid to upper 30s here for the Seward Peninsula from Kotzebue on down to near 40 at Nome, and mid to upper 40s to near 50 there for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area, specifically the Kuskokwim Delta. Otherwise, lower 40s for the Aleutians and the Pribilofs. And the highs for tomorrow, above freezing here, lower to mid 30s for the right along the Arctic coast. North Slope 35 to 40 for your highs, warming into the 50s along and south of the Brooks Range, and then from the upper Yukon Valley, lower 60s there, mid to upper 60s for the central and eastern interior here north of the Alaska Range, with 60-degree weather all the way down to the southwest coast, including Bethel and St. Marshall, St. Mary's area in the lower 60s, otherwise mid-50s for Nunivak Island, upper 30s St. Lawrence Island, upper 40s for the Pribilofs and the Aleutians, and for the Kodiak Island area, mid-50s, lower 60s Bristol Bay, and 50s to lower 60s here, south central Alaska, and right around 60 for the Panhandle. Lows the following morning, about the same 40s to lower 50s there for the southeast coast, 40s to near 50, also across much of southern Alaska, lower to mid-40s central interior, back down into the 20s again for the Anatuvik area, Brooks Range, and upper 20s for the Arctic coast, with temperatures staying in the 40s over the Aleutians. High temperatures looking like this Sunday or Saturday afternoon, 65 to maybe 70 over the eastern interior, mid to upper 60s for the Susitna Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
We got some good VFR here from the southwest coast here, actually across much of the Bering Sea, in over to the Yukon. IFR, Brooks Range on north there to the Arctic coast, and IFR, Kodiak Island, already spreading up there by tomorrow morning along the Alaska Peninsula, on out a little bit better in the central and western Aleutians, but IFR here for the northern Gulf of Alaska, on up into eastern Prince William Sound, and across most of the Panhandle. For tomorrow afternoon, that retreats back to the coastline there, just barely grazing a few areas there with the IFR, becoming VFR farther to the east. IFR on the increase here across Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, working up the west side of Cook Inlet, especially along the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and then gradually becoming marginal VFR farther to the north here along the portions of the Alaska Range, and VFR in the interior, marginal VFR north slope on out to IFR, central western Arctic coast, IFR from Atka on up toward Cape Newenham, but improving out here to the west. And then for Saturday morning, first day of the weekend here, IFR North Slope Arctic Coast, a narrower area of VFR in the interior here. Lots of IFR now spreading up along and on the southern slopes of the Central Alaska Range here, Isabel Pass, and the North Gulf Coast, socked in Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak, Aleutians, and then up, but not quite reaching the southwest coast here, except there's some IFR for the Kilbrook Mountains. And then for Saturday afternoon, for the southeast coast here, IFR all along the coast, and then northern areas, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, it looks like. Marginal VFR inland a ways, and you hit the VFR again here, say from, roughly maybe Juneau on down, Annette, Metlakatla, and Stewart. Those areas looking pretty good for the afternoon. Otherwise, marginal VFR, much of the Arctic coast, some IFR right along the eastern Arctic coast there, marginal to the Brooks Range, and the interior, it's got some VFR left, but marginal VFR covering much of the southern third of the state. And for Anatuvik, marginal VFR tomorrow with VFR to the south. And again, the lowest conditions for Radigan as well will be in the pass, and especially to the north, better to the south. Lake Clark and Merrill, deteriorating conditions the entire day as moisture spreads northward, starting out VFR, becoming IFR as the afternoon wears on. And rainy, same trend a little later there, the moisture taking a little longer to work in. And then for windy, becoming VFR, or mostly VFR, Celine's visibility will be lowering, but should stay VFR throughout the day. But Isabel occasionally marginal. Mentasta starting out marginal with improving conditions in the afternoon. Tanita, VFR becoming marginal, and Portage, marginal VFR to IFR early, by late morning at least, and then Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, surface, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast, and then 2,000 to 8,000 feet here across the interior, 10,000 feet Kodiak Island in across the Alaska Peninsula, and 6,000 to 8,000 feet over the southern panhandle, about 8,000 feet in the Bering. icing, lots of moisture spreading on up to the northeast from the southwest, and pretty good area of widespread considerable moderate rime icing above about 6,000 feet here. About 8,000 feet light to isolated moderate rime icing Kodiak Island back to the Fox Islands, and a narrow band here along the Kuskokwim Delta and southern Kuskokwim Valley. Possible icing up there along the western and central Arctic coast. Jet stream showing strong jet across the Pacific here, pretty westerly and down to the south, well south of the Aleutians. Take a turn to the north here was high pressure builds over the northeast Pacific. So southerly flow pulling a lot of moisture up, and then it'll be cutting off this northern branch here and keeping it to the north there, and eventually these two troughs will phase probably on Saturday. And so moist, very moist southerly flow coming into southern Alaska. And for 9,000 feet, 35 to 40 knot winds associated with this low across the peninsula. Northerlies up to 40 there across the central Aleutians, just 15 farther to the west. Light winds here along this trough axis in the interior, 15 to 20 knots to the west there, and 15 to 20 here into the panhandle. 3,000 feet shaping up like this, about the same there. 35 to 40 knots, Alaska Peninsula, lighter over the interior, and 25 to 35 across the Aleutians. Turbulence, moderate chop, pretty widespread here from Kenai Peninsula to the central Aleutians.
The Valdez fly-in started out probably back in the 80s. It became this mecca of short-field takeoff and landing, bush flying, you know, where everybody meets. All the cowboys show up. You know, everybody shows up with their horse, you know.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll start the safety briefing for the SOL competition. If you have not done it somewhere else, do not do it here first. This is not the time to try the new technique.
This competition prepares pilots for landing off airport. Whenever you're looking for a place to land, you have to be absolutely certain about that spot. You have to be able to touch down at that spot or a little bit later and never before it. So being able to get down exactly where you want and stop as quickly as you can, one is really fun in competition, but two is excellent training for flying supercars.
There's a lot to it that separates some of these guys from just your normal flying around the United States types of pilot. I guess that's why they come and seek me out a little bit. I've been flight instructing for about 20 years now. Like any kid, whatever his dad does, you probably don't want to do it, you know, but it's the only thing I ever knew. When you're hanging around a bunch of pilots, we have a lot of pride, you know, we talk about, well, I've been flying this airplane for the last 5,000 hours, you know, and I've been in this airplane for 2,000 hours, and, you know, I learned to fly when I was 16.
I've been flying since I was about 2 weeks old.
I've been flying since the headset would fit over my little baby head.
I started flying with my father when I was 8 years old.
So I asked my dad one day, I'm like, hey, when was the first time I was in an airplane? And my dad looks at me and he says, son, you were conceived in an airplane.
This will be my 6th year at the Valdez fly-in, and I've won first place in 4 of the 5 years. We have the T3 tail wheel suspension. You can find that at supercubsnorth.com. In the front here we have the leading edge slats. They help the air stay attached to the wing and help it fly at a high angle of attack. We have a 240 horsepower motor. It cruises around 85 miles an hour, but it climbs out at, better than anything I've ever flown in. Most of the guys that I compete with at Valdez at the STOL competition are seasoned bush pilots that have been around the block for a long, long time. They've seen way more than I'll ever see in my life. So they all give me a hard time about having won in the past, and I just hope that I don't run out of luck here. Because these guys, they are certainly really good, and I don't doubt that they'll come back and get me one day.
All right, you need to do it with that 194 feet. You landed 55 feet 8 inches. Let's give them a wave.
I've been flying in Valdez at the competition for about the last 10 years, and it's been great fun, but nothing has ever come close to the amount of pride and fun that I had today getting to compete with my daughter in this event.
I've been coming here with my dad since I was probably an infant, and this year he finally convinced me to compete too.
Laura J. Erb. Her first landing distance was 209 feet, so we'll see if she can beat her first landing distance. And yes, that will qualify.
All right, Wes, proud dad. Now,
Let's see, her second landing
was 162. Your best landing was, if I remember right, 152? That's close, but I would have to check the numbers. I think she might have beat me this year.
Getting in a Super Cub for the first time is like strapping on a set of wings and see everything from a bird's perspective, and then touch down and get out, and suddenly you're 100 miles from where you last were, or maybe even in a place that nobody's ever been before, and it's just an unreal experience. Flying up in Alaska is a lot different than flying the lower 48 because the weather changes so rapidly, the terrain is much more varied. Having the opportunity to be a pilot in Alaska has really defined who I am as a pilot and who I am as a person.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the ice edge for today. Not a lot of difference from what we've seen the last couple of days here. About the same, iced in over on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, open in the Chukchi, and not a lot of change expected over the next 4 or 5 days. Moving on to coastal water forecast, northwest 15, seas running 5 feet for the south coast, up to the north, west-southwest at 10. Pretty light there for tomorrow, and south up to 25 for northern Lynn Canal. Otherwise, Stevens Passage, southwest 15 becoming northwest for Clarence Strait. And then for Saturday, winds pick up a little bit here, southwest 15 on the extreme south coast with 20. On the central coast, north coast here, 25 to as high as 30 knots out of the south, seas building 10 to 11 feet. Small craft advisories continue for northern Lynn Canal. And south 15, Stevens Passage, no change for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound tomorrow, east at 20 at 3-foot seas. Small craft advisories here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast 25 knots. Those increase to 30 knots out of the east for the western North Gulf Coast, and gales for the Barren Islands on into Kamishak Bay out of the southeast and then east. And small craft advisories for southern Cook Inlet, northeast 25, north of the Forelands only 15. And for Saturday, light northeast winds for northern Cook Inlet, about 15 knots, same direction south of the Forelands. Small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay out of the southeast. Barren Islands lose the gales and drop down to 20 knots from the south. Southwest 15 for the western North Gulf Coast. And southeast 30 knots for the zone around Middleton Island. Those seas still up around 13 feet. Stronger winds now from Prince William Sound east at 30 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Shelikof Strait tomorrow, east winds 30 knots, 6-foot seas. Southeast 25 here, east side of Kodiak, all the way down to Castle Cape, and then that increases about 30 knots with seas up to 18 feet there on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. And Bering Sea side, east winds 30 knots from Cape Sarachev all the way up across Bristol Bay. Outlook for Saturday, we've got south to southeast 20 to 25 here for the Alaska Peninsula. Seas up to 16 feet, and south 25 Castle Cape to Sitkinak, up the east side of Kodiak Island with 15-foot seas, and Shelikof Strait lighter, southeast 20 with 4-foot seas. Aleutians, Fox Islands, east-northeast 25 to 30 tomorrow, northerlies 30 knots, Adak and Atka, and then falling back to 15 out from about Amchitka or Kiska Island to Attu. That's where you see the 15-knot winds. Then on Saturday, very uniform wind pattern out here to the west from roughly Adak, north 20 knots, all the way out to Shimia, sea 7 to 9 feet. And then northwest here become kind of a squirrely wind pattern for the Fox Islands there at about 20 to 25 knots. And for the southwest coast, tomorrow, northeast 30 here, all the way out to the Pribilofs, 25 St. Matthew Island, northeast 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And for the first day of the weekend, east 20 south of Nunivak Island, but small craft advisories out of the north for the Pribilofs, northeast 30 St. Matthew Island, 25 out on the northeast for St. Lawrence Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, westerlies 20 knots, north 20 for the central coast, northwest 20 on the west side. Cape Beaufort to Wales, north at 15. And then for Saturday, from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, northeast 20 knots, a little bit of an increase, 4-foot seas. Northerlies at 15 there to the central coast, and then northwest 10. Then over toward Demarcation Point, it picks up to 20 knots out of the west. And for tonight again, blizzard, or not blizzard warning, a winter storm warning for northeastern Brooks Range for the heavy snow they've been seeing. That's out to tonight until 4 a.m. Friday morning. Look for 5 to 8 inches total up there. And also keep snowing along the Arctic coast, but late tonight it'll start to improve up there a little bit. Snow will start to taper off. The isolated showers, 40-mile country upper Tanana Valley, otherwise fair and dry over the interior. Wind and rain spreading northward here into Kodiak Island. Currently that's happening over the Alaska Peninsula. Showers and breezy out to the west, and mostly cloudy isolated showers to the Panhandle. Tomorrow should be a dry day there with some sunshine. Little clouds hanging into the coast though, right along the coast. Rain spreads up into south central Alaska tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon, possibly reaching the Susitna Valley, and then along this frontal boundary out to wet conditions for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, less snow for the Brooks Range and Arctic coast as well as the North Slope, and that really improves the next day. Some isolated rain and snow showers on the east side, dry otherwise. Front pushing inland brings a chance of rain through much of the southern half of the state and into the northern Panhandle. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.